Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before, and welcome to my Romance Takeover Readathon Light versus Dark vlog. So I'm super excited that Jen from the Book Refuge hit me up and asked me to be a co-host for this edition of the Readathon. I'm very excited. There are going to be 6 of us hosting, which I will link everybody in the description box, but it's Jen, of course, from the Book Refuge, myself, Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, Caitlin from the Love Librarian, Jessen from Jessen Reads Romance, and Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. So today is July 31st and the Readathon starts tomorrow on August 1st. This video will of course be coming out once the Readathon is already wrapped up. But for myself right now, while filming, looking forward to this week coming up is going to be a lot of fun. We have reading sprints every day of the week on each of our channels, which I'm very excited for. But I just can't wait to chat with everybody, read a ton of romances, and just have a fun time. I've already had so much fun seeing everybody who's tagged me on Instagram or hit me up in my messages, letting me know their TBR reads or their bingo boards. It's been so much fun seeing everybody pick sides and figure out what they're going to read for this readathon. So for myself, I decided to align with the light side. I initially had planned to go the dark route, but then I was looking at my TBR and kind of my mood for what I was wanting to pick up for this readathon, and I was realizing that I could go like either way, and I was kind of leaning more towards light just because of the books that were on my TBR. So right now I have 12 books on my TBR that I plan to get to for this readathon. I have Business Casual from Danielle Allen. I know this is a workplace romance. I have Fallen Jester, which is the 5th book in Devaney Perry's Clifton Forge series. I have Once Upon a Midnight Kiss from Elisa Braden. This is a novella in her Rescued from Ruin series, a historical romance series. I have read all of them, so I'm excited for this new one. Then I have Forbidden from Carla Sorensen. This is in her Ward Sisters series. Flawless from Elsie Silver. I know this is a bull rider hero, close proximity, they have to work together. Then I also have Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I got an arc of this one. It was available on NetGalley over the weekend for like 24 hours only as a read now, and so like I grabbed that right away. It's one of my most anticipated fall books and I can't wait to get into that one. Then I have Asher from Carrie Ann Cole. These are the parents of the heroine from Torn, which is one of my favorite Carrie Ann Cole books, so I'm excited for this one. I know the heroine has been in a coma, and so I believe when she comes out she has amnesia as well. I know they were both like rock stars in the past. Then I grabbed a novella from Denise Williams, which is The Sweetest Connection. This is a series of like airport novellas that she did, and they sound super fun and cute. I know this one is a like friends to lovers. And I have Loved Flushed by Evie Mitchell. I just read the 1st book in this series from Evie Mitchell back in July, and so I'm excited to get to the 2nd book in the series. And I know this one has like chronic illness or disability rep just like the first one did. Then I have 2 books from Kate Canterbury in her Walsh family series. So I have Underneath It All is the 1st book, and then the 2nd book is The Space Between. I had read some of this author's books last year, really enjoyed them, and I've been wanting to get to this series. And then I have Everything for You by Chloe Leese, and this is an sports romance. This is part of her Bergman Brothers series. I believe this is her most recent one. I've only read the 1st book in the series. That one didn't really work for me, but I did really like her Christmas one she wrote last year, which was the mistletoe motive. So I am excited to check out more in this series. So yeah, that is what is on my TBR so far. We'll see how the week goes, and I'll check in with you later. So it is now Thursday of the readathon, and I'm just finally checking in. I haven't really been in the mood to vlog, which I originally set out to do. So instead, I've just been kind of doing the reading sprints every day on everybody's channel and reading and just living my best life and not being behind or in front of the camera. So I thought it was a perfect time to kind of wrap up all the books that I've read so far for the readathon. I'm currently reading book 8 for the readathon, so I've had a really great readathon. I've already had 3 5-star reads, some misses in there as well, but mostly it's been a really fun time. Like I mentioned, I've been having a lot of fun on each of the host channels. We've been having reading sprints every day, which is a fun time to just chat with one another as well as chat with people in the comments. And then we also read for like a specific time, or you can do like other productivity things as well. So yeah, those have been a lot of fun. So first up, I read Fallen Jester, and this is the 5th book in the Clifton Forge series by Devaney Perry. This one I gave 5 stars. It is my favorite in the series so far. This one is a one-night stand turned surprise pregnancy that I never knew I wanted in my life, but I loved it so much and ate it up. So this is a small town series that takes place in Montana, and it centers around characters that were in a disbanded MC or a motorcycle club. So I do have a series review coming out for this entire series because I've been reading it for a Clifton Forge read-along that's been going on as well for the past 2 months. But I'll just quickly recap the book here. So in this one, the hero works at the garage shop, and he is actually one of the previous MC members, but like they're all disbanded now and the MC is no longer going. And so this is his book with the heroine, and she is from their hometown as well. They actually met at like a bar one night, had a one night stand. It turned into, obviously, surprise, there's a baby now. She returns back to him like a couple weeks later to tell him what's going on, and he wants like nothing to do with her. He never wanted to become a father. He didn't have any good like role models in his life, and so he kind of pushes her away. So she actually ends up leaving, going to finish her degree somewhere else in Montana. Returns 6 months later, so she's further along in the pregnancy, and she's going to be moving back home to live with her parents. Hero finds out she's kind of like looking for another apartment and decides, you know what, like I have this huge house, you should live with me. Because while he's trying to push her away, and he also tells her like, you know what, I'll leave, I'll move to Texas, like I'll totally get out of your way. Him and her both realize that like he also can't stay away from her. So he's very like pulled to her and will come to her all the time, and she realizes right away, sees through his insecurities. This one is great. Lots of protectiveness, lots of sweet swoony moments from the hero. There's the entire like found family from the entire group of characters that we've been following in the series. And yeah, I just really loved this one. The heroine was great. I loved her kind of logical thinking and always catching the hero off guard with what she says, and his just very like being obsessed with her and wanting to protect her. So this one was 5 stars for me, and then it met my prompt for the bingo board for One Night Stand. Next, I read The Sweetest Connection by Denise Williams. This is the 3rd book in her airport novellas series. This one I gave 3.5 stars to. So this one was cute and short. It is like best friends turned lovers. And both the hero and heroine work at an airport. They actually met like 7 years in the past when their college did like a buddy video calls type situation. They got paired up together. So they've been friends ever since, and now they work at the airport together. So one day the heroine actually finds a pros and cons list of like somebody debating should they not like tell their friend they have feelings for them. So she's secretly hoping that it is the hero's letter and goes to him as like, hey, did you misplace this? He's like, no, that's not mine, I've never seen it before. And so they kind of decide to team up together to try to find out from all the other employees in the airport like whose pros cons list this is. So along the way of trying to find out who the couple that this belongs to is, they end up like setting up multiple other couples in the airport, and they also confess their feelings to one another along the way as well. So this one met the prompts for rom-com and then also friends to lovers on my bingo board. Next, I had an arc of Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This was a read now on NetGalley for like only 24 hours. And I was on NetGalley like at midnight or something as soon as it dropped. I was updating some other arc like reviews and saw it. And so I grabbed it immediately, like not even knowing it was a 24-hour only deal. I couldn't even wait to read this one. Like it doesn't come out until November 15th, which I'm going to pre-order it for sure. I love everything Kennedy Ryan writes, and this one did not disappoint. Like if you're already a fan of Kennedy Ryan's writing and storytelling, I think this one is definitely going to be a favorite of yours as well. So needless to say, this one was 5 stars. It is like one of my all-time favorite books now, and definitely my top of Kennedy Ryan's books as well. So I've given like everything Kennedy Ryan writes 5 stars, but this one is definitely like the top 5-star of all the 5 stars. So like before, the ones that I loved were the Kingmaker duet, Long Shot, and the Whole Hoop series, and then of course the Grip series as well. And so now Before I Let Go is like the top of the list for me. This book is not only easily my favorite read of 2022, it's definitely on my list of all-time favorite books, like any genre, all time, all the years, like ever. So I don't want to give too much away about this book since it isn't out until November, but it is basically a second chance romance between a divorced couple. They are co-parents to a like teenage daughter and then a preteen son. They also are co-owners of a restaurant together, and they had a lot of grief and some traumatic events happen to their family kind of back to back that was the catalyst for them divorcing. This one was just really beautiful. If you know Kennedy Ryan's writing, then you already know that she deals with heavier topics and emotions, so definitely be prepared going into this one. This couple was definitely meant to be. You could feel their soulmate vibe the entire time. They definitely had the weight of the trauma and their past behind them that they had to overcome, but it was just a really beautiful journey. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough, which I don't want to say too much else because it was just like a journey. I went into it not knowing anything. It was just blown away. It's very emotional, but if you do like seeing reviews, I have a full review on my Goodreads for it, which my Goodreads is always linked in all the descriptions of my videos here, so you can read that one if you want to. There are some content warnings for this this book as well, which are in my Goodreads review as well. But this met my prompts for Second Chance and then Foodie, since they own that restaurant together. So yeah, that was for my bingo board. Next, I ended up picking up a historical romance novella. So it is Once Upon a Midnight Kiss, and this is from Elisa Braden, and it is a new novella that is part of her Rescued from Ruins series. So I actually caught up on the Rescued from Ruins series a few months ago, and so this was a new addition to the series, so I wanted to give it a try. But I actually ended up giving this one 2.5/3 stars. And this one was fine. It was just nothing like standout or memorable to me. Basically, the story starts out with letters from the hero, Andrew Farrington, and he has been writing to his secretary slash kind of personal assistant, which is the heroine, and she is in Scotland visiting like her cousins and trying to find this like box. So they have a lot of letters between them back and forth at first, and then the heroine is trying to like acquire this box for some reason, and to get it she has to like kind of talk to this kind of sketchy man, and if she's around that man a lot, her cousins are kind of trying to force her into a marriage. So when she tells the hero this in the letters, he ends up like, no, you're not marrying this dude, like don't let them talk you into anything. So he hops on a horse, takes off, gets to Scotland, shows up, and he's like, I'll marry you instead. So this read just felt very heavy on the dialogue, like dialogue filled without saying a whole lot, like, if you know what I mean. So like there was a whole lot of talking and a lot of dialogue being shared, but like nothing was really happening or like being developed for their relationship or like the chemistry or like these characters. Like I didn't get anything from it. And once we do get the romance kick in, it was like a little too late for me and I didn't really care. But it is on Kindle Unlimited. It's a quick novella. I mean, the wintry, gorgeous cover is like really, really pretty. So there's that. But yeah, it was sadly just 2.5 stars for me, but it did meet my prompt for arranged marriage on the bingo board. Next, I picked up Business Casual by Danielle Allen, and I gave this one a 3.5/4 stars. So this book, first of all, the steamy times delivered, like, let me tell you. So in this one, the heroine at the beginning of the story is going to an interview to become a new social media manager for like a financial institution. So she likes to like be very prepared. So she is at the lobby early and checking out the whole place, like scoping it out and all of that. And she ends up meeting this like super hot man who ends up being the hero. So he walks over to her, they kind of flirt, and they're very like bantery and definitely sparks flying. And then he asks her on a date. She says yes. She gives him her card, like all of these things. It's all going super well. And they go separate ways. She gets in the elevator, shows up at the interview, and then the interview is not only with the man she was just flirting with, but she finds out he is also the owner of the financial institution as well. And then in the company policy / her contract, they are not allowed to date. So like I mentioned, the steamy times in this were really great. Their chemistry was so hot and electric. So there was lots of sneaking around times in this, lots of like office shenanigans going on, some under the desk situation that was super hot. But I will say the first half of the story I was enjoying a lot more. The second half of the story did start to drag for me, and there was this whole like drama going on that I wasn't as big of a fan of. But yeah, the story's less than 300 pages. It's on KU and it is a pretty fun time. And this one met my prompt for workplace on the bingo board. Next, I picked up Everything for You by Chloe Leese. This is the 5th and most recent book in her Bergman Brothers series. This one I sadly did not like. I gave it 2.5 stars. I think I rounded up to 3 on Goodreads. I just don't think this author or this series in particular is for me. I mean, I did read her Christmas novella last year. I loved that one. But this Bergman Brothers series, I read the first book and absolutely hated that last year. That was all like pre her edits though, so I don't know if it's changed. But then this 5th book I skipped to and I did not enjoy it either. But I definitely think I'm in the minority for this series. I know a ton of friends who do love it, so I just am gonna opt out of this series going forward. This one is supposed to be like Ted Lasso inspired, which I watch and love that show, and it's just done a lot better. So like this didn't live up to it. And then on top of it, there was just some really cringy moments to me. I didn't like all of the pop culture references that are made in this. Like I'm a fan of the Hamilton musical, but it was like too overdone for me. They mentioned it so many times that it just got kind of ridiculous. And then this is an romance, but the steamy scenes in here, they just felt really vague, and it made me, while reading, feel like that the author, which I have no idea, but it felt like that they weren't comfortable like going there or going as far as they could with an romance. And then here the toddler, like niece or whatever of one of the heroes, was like acting like a woke teen. Like, I don't know, it just always irks me when children in romances do not act the age range that they should. That's one of my bookish pet peeves. And then the whole like pushing of romance reads and that whole like meta breaking the fourth wall situation with that. Like, I'm a romance reader and like I already get it. Like, why are you trying to shoved down my throat, like how important and cool and awesome like romance reads are. Like I already know, I'm already here. Like I don't want to hear it the entire read. So I will opt out of this series going forward. Those are my thoughts though. It did meet my prompts for sports romance and then LGBTQ plus rep on the bingo board. Next I read Forbidden by Carla Sorensen. This is the 4th book in her Ward Sisters series, and I gave this one 5 stars. So the Ward Sisters series is actually a spin-off of Carla's Washington Wolves series, which I ended up reading like 3.5 years ago. I love that series. It has one of my all-time favorite Marriage of Convenience books, which is The Marriage Effect. And in that book, we meet the Ward family for the first time. And so since that family was super popular, we have this now a spin-off generation story of the Ward sisters, which to me, I always love a family like saga series. So I read the first book in this series when it first came out a couple years ago, didn't really love it. And so I kind of put off the rest of the series. And so it's been like 3 years since I've read any of her books. And so I've heard great things about her newest series, which is now a spin-off of this series and a spin-off of her Washington Wolves series. So I've been wanting to get to those, so I thought I would catch up on some of the Ward sister books first. And apologies if that was like super complicated and this whole like backstory. But to me, I like knowing when a series connect and following them in order and things like that. So back to Forbidden. So this book has a couple of my tropes that I love that are like my catnip. So it has age gap, and then it also has a widower and a single father romance. This one is also like sports romance light or like sports romance adjacent, because the heroine is from a family of like NFL royalty, and then the hero was an MMA fighter, but he is now retired. And then he now becomes the owner of a gym where the heroine is like the manager and teaches lessons at. So in this one, the hero lost his wife to cancer when the story starts, and he is raising their daughter now on his own. And then we cut to 2 years later. He is now retired from MMA, and he decides he's going to move himself and his 7-year-old daughter back to Washington to his hometown to kind of be around his family. And then also he purchased the gym. The heroine is the manager at the gym. She has been going to the gym since she was a teenager and is super surprised when the owner tells her, like, not only am I selling it, but I sold it to the hero. And so when she meets him, she is shocked because he was her like childhood teenage crush. Like she had posters on her wall of him and just all of those, like doodling his name in her notebook, like all of those teen crush things. But now of course she's 25 and she is like, oh God, like I have to see him day in and day out now at the gym. I loved this one. I love series that connect with families, and there's a lot of family in this one, of her entire family making appearances. I really loved the presence of his daughter as well, and how she played into their story was super sweet. There are some super sweet emotional moments in here, like with the daughter's letter and things like that from her mom, which was super sad and both sweet to see. And then the romance in here was very slow burn. Both of them kind of have feelings for one another right away, and they both kind of have to, you know, give into that eventually. But yeah, I loved seeing their sexual tension that kind of is apparent right from the start, and kind of that push and pull they have of being pulled to one another while working together. I really liked seeing how the hero respected her, like not only her business ideas and choices, like including new sessions at the gym, like doing some women's self-defense classes and things like that. Just everything in this book ended up working perfectly for me. So 5 stars for this one. And then it met the prompts for age gap and a single parent on my bingo board. And then right now I'm actually in the middle of a book, so I'm reading Flawless by Elsie Silver. So it's going to meet my bingo prompt for forced proximity on the bingo board for the readathon. So this book, and I believe all the books in the author's backlist, take place in Canada, which is where the author lives as well. And they're all kind of like Western or ranch vibes. Like I know some of the other ones have horse trainers and things like that. And then this book, the hero is actually a bull rider. At the beginning of the story, the hero actually says some comments on camera and then ends up getting into a fight, which is also caught on camera. And so one of his sponsors end up like trying to pull the sponsorship from him, and so his team is like, hey, you need to become like very wholesome and like have a greater image. So his team decides like he needs a handler or a babysitter to stay at his side at all times, and that becomes the heroine. So this one definitely fits the prompt for forced proximity because they spend all their time together. She shows up at his family's ranch and meets his father and brothers and nephew. She ends up going with him on the road to some of the like rodeo things he's at and doing his bull riding events. They end up having to share a room together at a hotel because her heater's broken in hers, and of course she has to stay with him where there's only one bed. So yeah, there's a lot of great tropes in this one. The first half has kind of been a little slow for me, but now I'm like 70% in and it just started to pick up or get to the steamy stuff. So I am liking it a lot more and seeing their chemistry more that they are together. And then the heroine, she kind of has some other things going on in her past, which I'm feeling so far like we either haven't got enough of, or maybe we shouldn't have had at all, because so far I'm not sure how they're playing into the story. But she had like a congenital heart disease when she was younger and has surgery and like a scar on her chest from it. And then she also had like this very toxic, unhealthy relationship like with her doctor of when she was a teenager. Like that's her ex. That's like a whole other thing. And the heroine and her own dad, their interactions are kind of strange too. Like her dad texts the heroine and also the hero like all the time, and sometimes I forget those texts are coming from her dad, because I'm like, why are you talking about them like staying away from one another and like not sleeping together? Like, I don't know, it's just kind of odd. But now that we're getting to some of the chemistry part between the couple, I am liking it more, so we'll see how the rest of this book goes. Okay, so it's the last day of the readathon. I actually just jumped off of the live wrap-up show that Jen had on her channel. So I wanted to wrap up the rest of the books that I ended up reading for the readathon. And the last book I was talking about was Flawless by Elsie Silver. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. With this one, I think I went into it with higher expectations. I just been hearing a lot about this author and this book in particular. The middle to last part was definitely my favorite part of the book, and I think some parts in the beginning have definitely dragged on for me and were a little slower. Like I was mentioning in the previous clips, there was just some moments in here that kind of made me be like, what? Like, so the whole concept of the story is the hero needing this like handler to watch over him and look after him to make sure he doesn't do anything. But like the beginning incident that happened seemed very singular, and like I didn't understand why he needed this handler with him the whole time, which I get was like the point of the book. That's how the hero and heroine come together. But like I never saw the heroine have to kind of curb any of the hero's choices or like save him from doing anything. Like there was nothing for her to polish up for him, or like we never saw that, so I just didn't understand the whole concept of that. But there were, of course, some fun moments as well, like the forced proximity and the sharing of only one bed. Some moments in here made me laugh, like the buckle bunnies, which is similar to hockey romances, and puck bunnies, which I thought was kind of funny. Possessiveness that the hero shows at the bar was great. There's like a whole whipped cream scene at the bar, and the cowboy hat rule that he has to explain to her. Even like he gets her off one time when she's on the phone with her toxic ex. So like there was definitely some steam and great moments in here. So those last parts did definitely bring some of the steam and kind of make up for some of the slower, kind of strange choices in the beginning of the story for me. But yeah, so 3.5 stars, and it met the prompts for forced proximity on my bingo board. Next, I read Underneath It All by Kate Canterbury, and this is the first book in her Walsh's Family series. So in this one, the heroine is curvy. She is a teacher, and she wants to open up her own like charter school, and all she needs is a location to do that. So in the beginning of the story, she hooks up with like this architect firm to try to find a location for her new school, and that's how she meets the hero. The hero in this one is an architect, and him and his family own like an entire firm. He is from the Walsh family. So when they first meet, both of them kind of lust after one another and decided to give in and have one night of fun together. But after that, the heroine wants to get back to work. She wants to focus on her school. She has like plans. It doesn't have time for a relationship right now, where the hero is the one who actually wants the relationship and is pursuing her. So I liked kind of the heroine over time realizing that you can't plan for everything in life, and like sometimes relationships just pop up and she has to roll with it. The dirty talk and the steam in here was excellent and like such a fun time, which I first met the heroine of the story in Benchmarks, also from this author. It was like a novella series she had that I read last year, and so we meet the teachers working at the school there. Like the school's already established, so it was fun coming back to this beginning series and seeing how the school all started, and of course how the heroine and her hero have their story. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars, and then it met the bingo board prompt for plus size rep. And then next I ended up reading Asher by Carrie Ann Cole, and this one I ended up giving 4 stars. So I love this one. I've been putting it off for years since it came out. Torn by Carrie Ann Cole is one of my favorites, and the heroine of that book, this is her parents' story. So in this one, the hero is Asher and the heroine is Ember, and they have been together for like 15 years when the prologue starts. And they're both like rock stars. His whole family was like rock stars, and then him and his brothers like have a band. The heroine, she also did like a girl band group with her friends. They're both rock stars, and they are definitely like a power couple in the music industry. They were also teen parents, and so like I mentioned, their daughter has her own book which takes place after some of the events of the prologue of this book. And so Asher and Ember have always been in love. And then when the story starts, Ember is actually ready to stop her career. She wants to step back from her band. She wants Asher to step back as well, because she's like, you know, we don't spend enough time together. I want to spend time with our daughter. Like, I want to think about having another baby. Like, I'm ready to just get out of the spotlight, get out of this, like, us both in like separate spots doing concerts. Like, let's just spend time together. So right after having that talk of her plans for their future, she actually ends up getting into an accident, and it leads to her being in a coma for 8 years. So then as these 8 years go by, that is when the Torn book takes place, and like their daughter grows up, gets her own book. And then we cut back to Ember eventually does wake up from the coma, but she has amnesia. Like, she doesn't remember anything. She doesn't recognize her husband. She doesn't even recognize herself in the mirror. Like, she has no memories of her entire life. This one was hard for kind of like everybody involved, because you see how her family and friends were super excited for her to wake up and be back, but then they're kind of dealing with the fact that she doesn't even remember them. She doesn't have any connections with them. She doesn't recognize herself, and she's feeling like that she's a different person and like doesn't connect at all with her previous self. And she even refers to like her past self as like Ember or like another person. Like, that's not her now. And like I mentioned, like, this one is very emotional, and you feel kind of for everybody. Like, I felt for Ember in her situation and like just wanting people around her to move on and embrace the new her. And then I felt bad also for everybody around her, because like her husband has been waiting for 8 years for her to come back. Their daughter, she has been waiting for her mom to come back, and like she's having her own baby now, and like her mom doesn't want anything to do with her, kind of, and like is just very distant from everybody. So it is hard to see everybody else's relationship with Ember and kind of Ember's own like self-doubts and thoughts about everything going on with her new life. And like, I definitely did feel bad for Ember, and like I did want everybody in her life, especially Asher, to kind of embrace that new version of herself and stop trying to hold on to the past version of her so much. Ember even mentions in here, like when she comes home from the hospital, that she feels like she's going to Asher's house, and like that he was widowed, and like that she's being put into his old wife's clothes, and like getting fed her old favorite foods, and like, you know, that she's not that person anymore. Like, she's a totally new person. And so that was tough to read and see. But like, I definitely felt for Ember as well as Asher kind of in that situation. So this book is very long. Like, halfway in, I thought we were almost done, and then looked and I was like, holy crap, I'm only halfway into the story. Which I get, like, it needed time for all this like ebb and flow of their new relationship. I did like seeing how Asher eventually does come around and start to embrace or try to get to know the new Ember, which was nice to see. There are some choices that Kara Ann Cole decided to make with the ending of the story, and kind of how some plot lines played out that I wasn't really a fan of, and like I wish that didn't happen with all the buildup we had going on in the entire story. But yeah, so that's why it ended up being 4 stars for me. This met my bingo board prompt for celebrity, because I counted it since they are both rock stars. And then the last book that I read for the readathon that I'm counting for is Love Flushed by Evie Mitchell. And this is the second book in her All Access series. I read the first book in this series, which was Not My Type, just in July, and I really loved that one, and so I was excited to read more from this author. As far as I know, or at least with these 2 books, they both have chronic illness or characters with disabilities as well, so I really liked that representation. And in this book, it is own voices as well, because the author has Crohn's disease, which is what the heroine in this story deals with. And so the author based the heroine's experiences with her own experience. So in this one, the heroine is Annie, and she owns a $1 million company, like toilet paper subscription service. Like I mentioned, the heroine has been living with Crohn's disease. And so one time when she was mid-flare, she actually came up with this idea of needing this like paper goods, sanitary products subscription service. So one day when she's at a trade show, she actually ends up running into her ex-boyfriend from high school, which is the hero, so it is a second chance romance. And him and his brothers have been running their family's paper product supply service. So the hero Lincoln actually ends up giving Annie a letter and formally offering her like 50% of their paper product business. Then after the trade show, Annie ends up learning that her supplier isn't going to be renewing her contract, and she needs to find a new manufacturer within 2 months. So she ends up reaching out to the hero, and then it actually helps him out because him and his brothers were just about to have to close down their business. So this one, I loved how strong the heroine is and how savvy and business-minded she is. I really loved seeing her conversations in here with her friends and how they talk about Persuasion by Jane Austen, of course. And her friends are like, you are Lincoln's Mr. Wentworth, and like he is your Anne, which was super funny. And the dirty talk and the chemistry, like from the first time that the hero and heroine get back together, is just so good. All that like built-in history that they have from their previous relationship, just like definitely added. And then about halfway into the story, we learn about what broke them up in the past of their relationship. And so seeing that, they definitely had a lot to work through in this. But yeah, all the steam in this is excellent. The hero has a piercing. The way they communicate what they both like and want and need was just so good to see. And like I mentioned, the dirty talk was amazing. I have enjoyed both books in this series so far, and I can't wait to read the author's third book, which comes out I think later this fall. And yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, and it met the bingo board prompt for disability rep. So those are the 11 books I ended up reading for the readathon. I had a great time doing this. We just ended the live show, like I mentioned, and the light side won, which was super fun. And, you know, it was all in good fun, but it was fun to see every day people participating from their posts. And Jen was counting it, like, you know, how many dark side posts there were versus light side. And that was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of fun to see that so many people, this was their first readathon that they participated in, and just meeting and connecting with new friends on Instagram is always fun doing these readathons. And this was also a fun one for me because it was the first time that I was a co-host of a readathon. Participated in plenty of them, but this was my first time being a co-host. So thanks again to Jen for reaching out to me and letting me participate in this. And yeah, I'm excited. I got my bingo board filled out, so I blacked it out. And then when I was done with that, I just stopped reading the books for the readathon, and I ended up moving on to books and like arcs that I had that are coming out later this week that I had to get to. So yeah, thanks so much for watching this. Let me know in the comments if you participated in this readathon and maybe what your favorite book that you read was for it. I definitely had some hits in here. I loved, of course, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I loved Forbidden by Carla Sorensen. I loved Fallen Jester by Devney Perry. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you all in my next one.